it really starts with determining, what is your money story? And we all have a money story, whether it's subconscious or conscious, that shapes our beliefs and our thoughts and our behaviors towards money. And a lot of this, as you mentioned, goes way back when we were growing up. There are certain things you saw, certain things that you heard around money, like, oh, we can't afford this, or, oh, this is why you work hard, or, your father handles all the finances, or any number of different phrases or actions that you remember seeing as a child that directly informs your belief system around money. Not that that can't be changed, but it does take some, discovery to figure out what are your existing money beliefs and how can we kind of retrain yourself to think about money in a slightly different way.
Well, welcome everybody back to the Great Money with Sean Trace podcast. We've actually been already at it a little bit, talking about some fun things. And I have an awesome guest with me today. Now, would you like to tell people who you are and a little bit about what you do?
Absolutely. My name is Caroline Piehl. I am a CFP and a financial advisor. I'm the managing partner at our wealth management firm. It's called TimeWise Financial. So I work with individuals and families to help organize and plan their money for the future.
That's awesome. Now, talk to me about, how did you go down this path? What was it that made you really want to get into finance and money?
Mm-hmm. Well, it's sort of a long story, but I'll summarize it. I have a very non-traditional background for a financial advisor. I'll tell you that. If you look me up on LinkedIn, you'll see my first experience was actually in brand marketing at Nike. So I worked at Nike for 5 years out of school. I was a college athlete. I swam in college. And so my dream, Nike was the dream at the time because, being an athlete, Nike's the best of the best. I did study finance at Cal Berkeley, so I really am more of a numbers person, but I had an opportunity at Nike in brand marketing, and so I ran with it because it was such an amazing experience and awesome company to work for. About 5 years in, I kind of had this moment where I could either continue to try to climb the corporate ladder at Nike in marketing, or I could make a full career pivot and actually pursue the industry and the role, the job that I really feel like I was meant to do and wanted to do all along. And so I made a difficult decision to leave Nike, and many people would think is a dream job as a brand manager at Nike. And I started fully diving into becoming a financial advisor. I will say I had, a nice inroad as my dad grew up in the industry. So I kind of saw what it looked like to be in the industry and build something from scratch. So I got fully licensed. I took the CFP, and then I started plugging into my dad's firm at the time, which is a fully separate firm than the one that I am a partner of. And the biggest thing that I really motivates me is, when you work for a large corporation, it's really hard to feel and see the impact that you can make because it is such a large corporation, Nike. And when you are a financial advisor, you have yourself on one side of the table, and then you have, a couple or an individual on the other side, and you can directly feel the impact that you are making. And you're really helping, change their life by helping them through those decisions that sometimes are very difficult. So it's been very rewarding thus far, and I definitely have not looked back since.
That's awesome, because one of the things I was trying to think about how to segue there too, because there's so much awesome. And one of the things that you just said, I was working toward a question over here, but in that last line, you said something that really struck me. And one of the things that I think that a lot of people sit there and think that, personal finance, working with people, is all numbers and spreadsheets. But the reality is you just said that you're sitting there working with the person opposite you. And it's this person who's got these hopes and dreams and fears and worries and all of these emotions that are, and humans, we think that we are rational animals, but the reality is like we are still a bundle full of emotions that are completely out of control. You think about it though, like My daughter, yeah, she's 9, and she's like, she's scared of the dark still. She doesn't like to go places, and in our own house, which is a very safe building, she doesn't like to go to a certain room. And I remember, like, the other day, I was rewatching the movie It, and when they go down into the basement and he's just walking down the stairs, I had a basement like that. And
Oh,
those,
no.
I just was like, I saw that basement. I was like, nope, 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 nope. And I was just like, I'm done. I'm 40 something years old, and I'm
Yep.
like, I'm done. I clicked it off. I was like, I can't handle the stairs. But you think about it, like, recently in human evolution, the nighttime was where things that were like made noises came and ate you, and like,
Mhm.
and we still carry all of these fears from eons ago. And money is one of the things that can trigger that. And when you talked about,
Yes.
I watch all of these videos on Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, and the people are like, when the market is in turmoil, just stay the course. And people are like, freaking out. It's like, if you
Yeah.
time in the market is better than timing the market. I hear that, but that's really hard for most people to do, because people start freaking out. How do you work with people on the emotions and the behavior?
So that is a very good question. And I think what differentiates a good advisor from a great advisor is someone who can help identify those emotions and help navigate clients through those emotions. When you ask someone, what keeps you up at night? Or, what are two of the biggest stresses in your life? I bet you could probably guess what the top two are. Number one is usually health or money, and number two is the other, health or money, depending the order flips. And so you have to acknowledge that money is very emotional. It's emotional for everyone, whether you don't have enough and you're very stressed out, or in some cases, some people have too much. They feel guilty. They don't know what to do with it. And so there really is a spectrum of emotions regarding money. And so that was, I think, the biggest learning curve. I thought going into the industry, you had to be the most technically smart person. You had to know how to pick the best investment and be able, to know when to get in and out of it. And really, it's all about the behavioral side of finance, because you might be the absolute very best at what you do, but if you cannot translate concepts to the client and they just have the glazed over look, that client is not going to be your client for very long. And so it really starts with determining, what is your money story? And we all have a money story, whether it's subconscious or conscious, that shapes our beliefs and our thoughts and our behaviors towards money. And a lot of this, as you mentioned, goes way back when we were growing up. There are certain things you saw, certain things that you heard around money, like, oh, we can't afford this, or, oh, this is why you work hard, or, your father handles all the finances, or any number of different phrases or actions that you remember seeing as a child that directly informs your belief system around money. Not that that can't be changed, but it does take some, you know, discovery to figure out what are your existing money beliefs and how can we kind of retrain yourself to think about money in a slightly different way. For example, a lot of clients who are baby boomers, their parents grew up in the Great Depression. So times were tight when they were growing up as kids. Their parents saved every dime. They didn't waste any food. And now you have these baby boomers who grew up, they have these careers, now they're retired, and they have all this money and they will not spend it. They won't touch it. They are afraid that they don't have enough money. Even if I tell them you have 100% Monte Carlo success score, you can spend an extra $50,000 a year in retirement, and they still don't do it because of that hardwired money belief system that they grew up with of always put everything aside for a rainy day. You never know what's going to happen. You always save whatever you can. And so those are very real beliefs that are informed based on their experience, but are not as helpful in today's world when they have saved all of this money and they can afford to spend more. They just don't feel comfortable doing so. And sometimes that's okay. It's just letting them know that this is a money belief from when you were growing up And now, you do have enough money and you can afford to spend more. So it's I would say it's 80% of my job and what I do is kind of coaching, behavioral coaching around money and trying to help kind of reframe how people look at money.
We there was a great movie, and I am blanking on the name, but it was about Woodstock, and it was this kid that was a New Yorker kid whose family lived out near the Woodstock location, and the in the movie, this kid has to move home because his parents own this rundown hotel that's going under, and he gave up his job in New York and he moves back right before the whole Woodstock concert happened. And his family was like literally at the right place at the right time. And they started making an insane amount of money during the concert.
Oh,
They were
wow.
charging people, we got rooms, we've got this, we got that. And they're just pulling in money, just like crazy. And in one of the scenes, the mom, there was the mother, father, and the younger kid got into an edible, and that was something that she didn't do. Someone handed her something, and she just went to a place that she had never been, and they found her later on, and she had this stash. She was holding this pile of money, and she had like been stashing money all these
Wow.
years.
Yeah.
And so it was like, but what they went on to is the father explained to his son, she's like, we survived the Holocaust. And the idea of like there was just this innate need to save people. And the son was like, he couldn't comprehend it. He's like, I grew up in this place. I was doing this. Why can you not? And it was just this disconnect because one person cannot understand someone else's story to a degree, and it's like I live in Vietnam, which is really interesting that there's just a completely different look at money. There's different cultural approaches to money. And it's like you're right, because my wife and I were talking to each other about how do we talk to our daughter about money, because we each have these different stories, and our stories are not always the most healthy. And so one of the reasons is why I started this podcast, was to try to figure out different ways and to figure out my own emotional
Yeah.
roadblocks that keep
Yeah.
me from financial success. Like, but let me roll that back to you. You work with professionals and athletes. How do you help people deal with their emotional roadblocks, and what are some of the most common ones that people encounter?
Yeah. It's not an exact science.
Yeah.
But a lot of times, it starts with kind of identifying where that belief system came from. And that really helps open people's minds of, oh, wow, you're right. I think that is why, I save more than I need to, and I'm afraid to spend. Even if you tell me that I can afford, to spend an extra $50,000 a year, which is, quite a bit for most people. They still, won't necessarily feel comfortable doing it. So at the end of the day, I might be able to present the facts. But psychology, I think, still wins. So that's where I try to explain where it's stemming from and try to paint the picture that picture of what it was in the past is not the same picture and situation scenario that you're in today. But at the end of the day, it's up to each of us to make our own decisions around money. My job is to help educate and create a different perspective for that person. A lot of times, they open up to it over time, but sometimes people just cannot change when they go through some of those life experiences, and that's okay, as long as I'm still providing that. Outlook from a financial perspective. So the biggest two areas I typically see are kind of on opposite ends of the spectrum. The oversaver, ultra frugal, and a lot of that comes from a scarcity mindset growing up. And then on the flip side, I have the overspenders. Like, when they were growing up, it was always, you should treat yourself, you never know when there'll always be another contract that comes. There'll always be, another opportunity that comes where I can earn more money. And so that leads to, this feeling that you should always be buying the newest car and always be upgrading to the newest house. And that one's hard to change. But it is a common problem that I see as well. But it's still, you can go back to where is this stemming from in that belief system. And then you can also show this is the financial reality. You can show the numbers. If this spending keeps up at this pace, you're either going to have to work quite a bit longer, you're going to have to save quite a bit more, or ultimately you have to spend less. So those are two of the biggest not issues, but areas where I see trying to bring in more of the behavioral lens to complement the financial picture.
I love that. When someone comes to you and they're sitting there, where should people start? I mean, how do you help people get a snapshot of their reality? What are some of the things that you like to start doing?
Yeah. So, number one, it starts by just organizing. Sounds really simple, but a lot of people have stuff all over. They don't really know. They probably have credit cards they've opened up they forgot about. They might even have bank accounts at numerous different banks for whatever reason. They might have old 401ks from a job they worked 10, 15 years ago that they forgot about. So it just starts with getting a baseline, and we put it all on one page, almost like a flow chart. And we say, okay, here are all your assets. Here are all your liabilities, what debt you have. Let's see, if there are any opportunities to clean that up. We look at your income. We look at any, life insurance that you have, and we just get it organized on one page so they can see everything on one single page versus having to log in 12 different places. So that usually creates a lot of clarity, and it makes the area of opportunity very, very clear at that point in time where, if we have all your loans or debt, stacked up on one page, it becomes pretty clear where we need to focus. Or if you have, 8 different investment accounts for no real reason, it becomes pretty clear on where we can simplify. So we really start with just organizing, and then we identify the list of priorities, and just start to make our way down those priorities one at a time based on, how critical or, how we can, if we need to push it out a couple years and we can, then we'll do that.
I just recently, I'm proud of this actually. I started working with my own CFP, certified financial
Uh-huh.
planner. He's awesome. He's someone who makes me feel safe, which I know might sound silly in times, but like when you're dealing with something that's highly emotional, he's the person I can talk to, and he's just like, "Hey, yeah." It's always got this even keel, and for me, I'm just like, I need that. I need this even keel because I'm on an emotional
Yeah,
roller coaster and
a
everything.
reassurance. Hmm.
But we started laying things out, and it was, when I started looking at the numbers and connecting all my accounts to, the app that we were using, I was like, wow, okay, I can see it. It's not what I
Yep.
like, not where I
Yeah.
want to be right now, but it's okay. At least you can create a plan. There was what was it? I remember this story about someone. I can't even remember the name of the story, but there was this mountain climber. They made, I think it's like Into the Abyss or something. There was a mountain climber, that group of guys that were climbing, and one of the guys fell into this crevasse, and they thought that he was gone. You know what I'm talking about,
Oh,
right?
is this
And then
127 hours
is it? I can't remember,
where
but
he had
no,
to
no,
cut
that's
his own leg
no,
off?
that's awesome. Also, that was awesome. That's a great movie too, man. No, this guy falls into this crevasse and he breaks his
Oh,
leg, and they thought he was dead, and into thin air or something. It's like a documentary, I think. And so the guy,
okay.
there was two guys climbing, and there was one guy in the above and the guy below, and the guy in the above had to cut the rope because he couldn't pull the other guy up. And so the guy fell into the abyss, and the guy was like, "Oh my goodness, I just cut the rope on this guy." But the guy was really injured. But as he was coming in and out of consciousness, what he did was he would, come back into consciousness, and he's like, I need to get to that. He's like, I don't know how to get back to camp. Camp seems beyond my ability to comprehend right now. But he's like, he looked up, he's like, I can see a rock. And he got to the rock. And then, that might have taken hours of whatever, and is, super injured. And then he looked up again and he's like, all right, that piece of snow crawled. And what eventually, I think it was like 5 days, but this guy crawled his way back to base camp. And they were just like blown away that he was there. But the thing I love about the story is he never thought that he could accomplish what he did. But by setting these little goals and by setting this direction, he was able to get from point A to point B. And I think that that's what, I was talking to someone the other day about like Michael Jordan and Lionel Messi. There was a day where Michael Jordan walked into the gym for the first time and picked up a basketball. We don't think about Michael Jordan never not having a ball in his hands, but there was a first day that he came into the gym and he probably, you know what? Maybe Michael Jordan was awesome on his first day, but maybe he sucked on his first day. Most people are not that great at something on the first day.
Yep.
But he was able to accomplish something amazing. And like, this is what I loved about when we were talking about things for Ilani's little world. You help compare sports and money. Can you talk a little bit about that for adults as well?
Yes. So this is something I'm very, very passionate about. I like to do financial literacy sessions with college athletes because I think there's not enough education out there, and college athletes are now earning money for their name, image, and likeness, and they have zero education around what to do with it, how to pay taxes, how much do I pay in taxes. So I created this whole curriculum that basically draws parallels between sport and money, because I think everything you learn by being an athlete, especially an elite athlete, you can take those same skills and you apply them to money, and you will be just as successful with money as you were in your sport. I truly believe that. It's just sometimes you need to explain it in a different way for it to really resonate. And so, everyone has seen athletes and kind of heard about their work ethic and what it takes to get to that level. Kobe Bryant was infamous for the work ethic that he had and the hours that he put in before the rest of the team showed up and the hours after the team had left. And so, it's a direct correlation of what you put in is what you get out as an athlete. Obviously, there's some, God-given talent that is a big part of it, but a lot of it is work ethic. And so the consistency of showing up and putting in the work makes you a better athlete. So when that championship season comes, you're going to perform at the best of your ability because you did the right thing day in and day out, from training, nutrition, recovery, everything. You've done all you can do every single day consistently. You have the right habits put in place to set yourself up to succeed. It's the same exact thing with money. If you are consistently setting money aside every paycheck you get, you are putting money aside for future you, you're investing it, and you're being very diligent and consistent about that, you are going to reap those rewards with, the nest egg you're creating for retirement. You're going to have more options of when you want to retire or how long you want to work because consistently, day in and day out, you did the right thing. You consistently paid yourself first by putting money aside for future you, and you didn't get sidetracked by, the lifestyle creep that I think a lot of our consumers today, it's always about, new cars, new homes. It's a lot about, kind of the flashy things, which you can afford that and still retire, then that's great. But a lot of times there's a compromise of spending today versus saving for tomorrow. And, it's really a byproduct of the daily habits that you have will directly impact, the success that you have with money in the future. So I think they're a complete parallel between sport and money.
I love that. There was, and we don't always see the progress we're making. And that's one of the things. I had a great, I'm a black belt in Japanese style jujitsu, which is kind of like judo. And I had a great teacher coming up because he is now a project management teacher, which is kind of awesome because he would pull in a lot of those project management principles into our martial arts. We had clear checklists, we had clear goals, clear expectations about what you needed to learn, what throws you need to do, how many times you need to do them, the structure, how to get into the throw, and he would break everything down. And one of the things that was awesome was that there was progress that I could track. I could see what I needed to do. I knew how many times I needed to practice this. I knew how many times I needed to do this. And it wasn't that it was the numbers that mattered. It was just the numbers allowed you to get the reps in, and it was like, and as you're getting the reps are getting you better and you continue to improve. And I think that one of the things that you were talking about too, and I really like with sports, when I put this, I got all of my information entered into this app, and I got a new bank account that my advisor recommended. He liked this one company, and so I'm not going to throw any names out there, but one of the things that was cool is that the app helps me track. Nice, you got puppies, and dogs are awesome. We have a puppy, and I can hear him freaking out. We have a brand new 3-month-old poodle. That's my daughter's
Oh my
dog.
gosh. Wow.
And she's upstairs losing her mind right now. And I have no idea what's happening, but I can hear her. So gotta love dogs.
Just part of life.
Part of life, right? But one of the cool things with as I would progress in martial arts is that there was a tangible ability to see it. And with this new app, it's tangibly giving me, am I hitting my goals? Am I making the progress that I want to make? And I mean, man, I wish they gamified more things, because you can accomplish anything if it's gamified. I don't know why we're not bringing more of these sporting principles into our personal finance, man. You hit your emergency fund goal. Boom,
Yep.
you've got 10 points,
Yeah.
Oh man, yeah, I got 10 points. They're imaginary
Yeah.
points, but hell yeah,
Yeah, totally. I love it. Yeah, I think it's a great point of kind of creating smaller milestones, similar to that documentary that you were talking about. You can't do it all at once. It's just too overwhelming, which a lot of people, I think what keeps them away from kind of organizing their money and getting a game plan together is there's just too much. It's overwhelming. I don't even know where to start. Like, I don't want to talk to an advisor because they're going to try to sell me something. So they just avoid it. They just say, you know what, I'm fine. I'll deal with it later. And then that later point comes and it's really late in the game. And so I think just breaking it down to smaller goals, right? Like if it is debt management, then which ones do we need to knock out first? And when we knock those out, yes, we're going to celebrate that and then move on to the next milestone of building up your emergency fund, start participating in your retirement plan through work. Like all of those are very significant achievements that, to your point, I don't think they're quite celebrated, as if it were gamified in some sort of way. But yeah, I think it's similar to, let's say a football team, whatever your favorite college or NFL team is. Let's say they're going into rivalry game and they don't have a game plan. They're probably not going to be very successful without a game plan of how to beat that specific opponent. It's the same thing with your money. If you have no game plan in place and you just expect someday you'll be able to stop working and retire, you're probably not going to be successful. So I think it just really starts with getting everything down on paper and then creating that game plan of what do we need to do first, and then just kind of taking it one step at a time. And ultimately, you will see the progress as some of those goals start to be checked off. And I think that is a rewarding part, is you do see progress along the way. It might take a while at first and you might not really see it, but then you wait a year and then another year and you really start to see the progress that daily change has made over time.
I love that. And it was something I was going to say earlier, and I'm so glad we circled back on it. My daughter, I don't know about you, but one of the areas I wish I had gone sports, I was able to motivate myself. I played collegiate volleyball. I got into judo, Muay Thai. I mean, I love all types of things, and I still
Yeah,
train Muay
it's cool.
Thai now. Yeah. But when I was a kid, my parents let us drop the ball in the musical instruments. Like, I love
Yeah.
my mom, but she
Yeah.
did not keep us on the piano. And one of
Yeah,
the things that
same.
I did,
Same.
with my daughter, right? My
Yep.
daughter like is from a very musical family. My wife is a professional singer, and my father-in-law and mother-in-law are amazing musicians. And so I said, I know that she's got some innate talent in there, but we have to stick with it. And my wife and I both had these regrets, like, man, I wish I'd have stuck with piano. That would have been a great thing to have. So I got my daughter a piano teacher about 3 years ago, and it was probably the most brutal 2.5 years. I mean, we were stuck on Twinkle Twinkle. And I was sitting there questioning, I was like, why are we
Oh,
even doing this? Like, I love my daughter, but man, maybe this kind of skipped her. Maybe this whole musical talent. My mom is the exact opposite. My mom can only hum 3 notes. It's like, she only can do 3 notes. I love my mom to pieces, and she'll even admit it. She can't sing. She can't do anything musically. 3 notes. I was like, oh gosh, I hope my mom's genes didn't get passed down there in the musical side. But finally, one day, my wife came down and was chatting with my daughter, and they were watching a video, and this song came on. And my wife was like, oh, I love that song. And she started showing my daughter a little bit of this on the piano. I have never in my life seen a breakthrough moment as clearly as I did on this day. My daughter said, wow, I like that. And she went up to the piano and she just started playing it. And I was just like, it was the prelude to Ave Maria. And it was by Johann Sebastian Bach. And it wasn't a very easy piece of music. But my daughter was like, I really like that. And so she talked to her teacher. Her teacher showed it to her. And my daughter now plays it by memory. Like she's playing Bach by
wow.
memory now. And then that was one Bach song. And then she figured out, oh, there's this other classical piece. And she's playing another song by Mozart. That she's playing something by
How cool.
Chopin. And I'm just like, whoa,
Just
where where,
exponential breakthrough.
where did Mary have a little lamb go, man? I just like, we skipped from here to here, man.
Yeah.
And the fact that she was doing it all from memory, like it was like she was doing this 8-minute piece of music by memory. And I was just like, thank goodness it wasn't grandma's DNA that got stuck in
Wow.
there, not the 3 notes.
That's amazing.
But I want to feel like it was this sudden transformation. But the reality is that every single day that she practiced was laying the foundation. Every single time that she sat there and plunked away at those notes, it was creating those neural pathways, teaching her resilience, teaching her consistency, teaching her the ability to focus in on something. And when I sit there, and this is one of the reasons that I had been doing Ilani's Little World for like 4 or 5 years with her. We started it during the pandemic because there was nothing for us to watch. And I was homeschooling, and I'm just like, what are we going to do? I don't know. Let's share things with other people, because I used to teach kids for a long time. And I suddenly, this last year, I was like, I'm talking to all these financial advisors and I'm making nothing financial for kids. We really need to be talking to young people about money.
I
We
love it.
have to start
Yep.
talking about money.
Hmm. I love it. I think that's amazing. Yeah, I think it's any anything worth doing, whether it's musical related, whether it's theater, whether it's sport, um, usually requires a lot of consistency and dedication. And you're right. Sometimes there is a significant delay in that gratification, right? Sometimes you do not see that return of your time investment that you put in until a lot longer in the future, and you're discouraged. You think it might not happen. You think this
Like a
is a waste of
401k.
time. Yeah, exactly. So I think that's a really good point, because even as an athlete, um, you might have put in all the work this year, but there was an injury, or mentally you weren't in the right headspace and you end up not performing at the best of your ability when you need to. That happens all the time. But that doesn't mean that all of that hard work that you put in is gone and away. At a certain point in the future, it'll catch up to you. So I like to think of it, actually, Michael Phelps was one who used this analogy, and he's one of the hardest working athletes of all time. I think in his run up to 2008, where he won the 8 gold medals, um, He worked out every single day of the year, did not take one single day off. Christmas, Thanksgiving, you name it, he was still training in the pool. And he always used to make this analogy that every single day, every rep, every lap that you're swimming in the weight room, everything, you are making a deposit into the bank. So I would picture this big vault, and you're just stacking a little bit each day, a little bit each day, a little bit each day. And even if it was a bad practice, stack a little bit each day. Then when it comes to the Olympic Games, you go into that vault and you make a full withdrawal. So whatever you put in the bank, that's what you get to withdraw. And so if you're consistent and showing up as best as you can each day and putting in that work, when the time comes to make the withdrawal, hopefully you have enough in there for what you need to do that day. And so I just found that visual so impactful for me because, it's the actual analogy is putting money into the bank and ultimately being able to take it out when you retire. So it's a very direct correlation back to your money. But I also think it speaks to the compound effect. So, if you learn about investing, you learned about compound interest, and the longer time that your money is working, the greater that compounding can work for you over time. And so I think, whether it's learning piano, you might not see that immediate impact, but over time, all of that time investment starts to compound, and you might see this significant breakthrough that might seem out of nowhere. But in reality, all of that work has been compounding up until that moment.
I love it. I wanted one of the visuals that you were talking about there was like putting something in the bank. I love Harry Potter. Love the whole. One of my favorite
Yep.
scenes is they go in and like he does the finger and Harry Potter's vault opens and there's all these galleons and I was just like,
Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
yes,
That's what you want.
galleon.
That's what you want.
That's what I want. I want to open up a
Yeah.
room full of galleons.
Yeah.
And one of the,
Yep.
my daughter and I went and we were like, when she got a bunch of money one year for Lunar New Year, which is a big thing in Asia. Like it's like their Christmas, but they give money. And my daughter was like, "What should we do with it?" And she's like, "I want to buy this. I want to get this." And I said, "Well, or we could save it." And we watched Harry Potter. I was like, "Harry Potter's got a room full of gold." And she's like, "Man, I wish I could buy gold." And I was like, "We can go buy gold." And she's like, "What?" So we went and bought her a little gold, like a little like
Cool.
gold, like
Yeah.
little piece of gold, like that came in the little foil, and it was like, and she's like, "This is rare." And she was like, and we put it into her piggy, it's like a little, bought her a little safe, and she put it in there. I was like, "It's your vault," and she was just
Mhm.
so excited about it. And
That's
then she was
awesome.
like, "What do we do now?" I was like, "Well, we get more of them, and and then if you really need something, you have this crazy gold vault of things." It's like, you remember Harry? He was able to buy a new broomstick. Yeah. Did he have to think and worry about the money? No. Why not? Because he had a vault of gold. And I was like, exactly. We have to build our
I
own
love the
gold vault.
analogies. Yeah, it's perfect.
Yeah. So it's good. Hopefully kids can go build their vaults. If you could give, again, someone today listening to this some advice, what would you like to share with everyone?
Yeah. I like to break things down into very simple, actionable items because the worst thing we can do is talk about all this great stuff and not really leave anyone with a tangible next step. So I think if you have not done anything to understand where your money is, to understand what you're spending, I would just start today. You're not too late. You're not too late to start today. Yes, you could have started last year, but there's no time like the present to start. And really, what I would just start doing is just start tracking where your money's coming from and where it's going. As simple as that. You want to start with the basics of where's your income coming from? If it's from a, W-2 job or from a company, all right, that's pretty straightforward. If you have multiple streams of income, where's it coming from? How much are you earning? And then where's it going? This is usually the tougher part. And so I like to use technology to help me with this. I just link my bank accounts and my credit cards, and I get a little report of where my money's going each month. It breaks it down by category. And that's really helpful just to know how much I'm earning versus how much I'm spending to see if there is an issue there. Um, and really, the from to is right now, you want to know where your money's coming from and where it's going. And then the to that you want to get to ultimately is telling your money where to go. So right now, we just want awareness of money coming in and money going out, and understanding that versus just not really caring about money coming in or going out. But ultimately, you will get to a point where you are actually the CEO of your money, directing this is exactly where my money's going to go, with intention and with purpose behind it. So really simple starting point is track where your money's coming from and track where it's going. And there will be a lot of eye-opening things that you will find when you do that exercise.
I love that. I remember it was for personal training, but I remember seeing this one quote that the best day to begin getting in the gym was like 10 years ago. The second best day
Yeah,
is today.
it's true.
So you,
It's very true.
you never can beat now.
Mhm.
Where can people look for more information from you and more content from you?
Yeah, so we do a ton of informational videos, webinars, from everything on family wealth planning and how to have those family conversations with your kids, to tax planning, to Social Security, to long-term care planning. So we do all of those through TimeWise Financial, which is our financial planning and wealth management firm. So you can go to our website, timewisefinancialllc.com, and there's a blog there that has a lot of resources of content. And then we have a newsletter. We send educational videos every single month from one of our CFP advisors. So you can sign up for that newsletter on our website. And like I said, we do those educational webinars every quarter in addition to those monthly videos. So a lot of different kind of quick tips that we give through the monthly videos. And then the webinars are much deeper dive where we usually bring in an outside expert and have it more conversational to learn about that specific topic.